Machado got in Tatis's face, yelling at him, "It's not about you. Let it go. You can't get tossed from this game." Padres are also in the playoff race. Is this a leadership example? If Twitter seems very divided on this, where it feels like everybody who played the game is like, "Yep, this happens. This is part of the game." Veteran guy trying to get the younger guy on the.
I think the bigger issue is the fact that it was seen in the dugout, which should be more of a safe space. It's not like we don't have the luxury of being like, "Hey, I'm having an argument with you, and let's go down the tunnel real quick and let's figure this out." Like, talk about raw emotion and things that need to be said now and in the heat of the moment, in the height of the season when everything is magnified. He needed to do what he needed to do, and he needed to do it now. The fact that there was someone there with a camera phone and was able to film it, and I think since then people have kind of been able to dissect what was said. I think that's the bigger issue, but I don't think it's a big issue at all. I think
the baseball part of it's not an issue at all.
No, I mean, yeah. I mean, whether it was two rooks or two vets going at it in the dugout, like the thing people forget is we see each other all the time. We've been together for each other for 8-9 months. We're with each other all the time. Baseball is a very emotional game. I could be in the greatest stretch of my life, and he might be feeling like shit, and he might be emotional, and I might be doing something that's rubbing off on him wrong. Like, you're just around someone so much. I mean, we all say you marry your best friend, your soulmate, the person you can't live without, and you have arguments with that person too, all the time. Like, and we don't necessarily always choose our teammates. Like, we end up on teams, and you have teammates, and against popular belief, we don't like all of our teammates. Like, you respect them, and you might like all of them, but there's certain times you don't like all your teammates. Like, you just have to deal with it. Like, they're your teammates. That's who you have to choose to be around and choose to be with all the time. But I think if I didn't look too much into it, my initial reaction was, like I talked about, I'm upset that this is seen inside the dugout, because I feel like there's not a lot of safe places athletes could go anymore to do these things. And we had a scenario here in New York this year where we had two players.
Raccoon?
Yeah, we had two players get into it over something that happened on the field. And a little bit of it was a lead up on the field, but, smartly, both of them went down underneath the tunnel. But we also have fans and a reporter access that kind of is adjacent to the dugout that's able to kind of see inside and see down below and hear and see things. And without actually really knowing what happened, speculation happens, then rumors start, and then you get in this whole divide. Was it right? Was it wrong? What was said? What wasn't said? And, Lindor came out and made a joke about it because we were trying to diffuse the situation, and then ultimately it became a bigger deal. But shit like that happens. Like, if knowing Manny a little bit from being around him and not really knowing Tatis, but respecting the way that he plays and goes about his stuff, I think both of them really do want to win. And I think Manny also understands that he was probably a lot like Tatis when he was younger.
Yeah.
And he also understands that Tatis is their best player. And I think openly he came out and said that.
Yeah, he said it out loud.
And I think that's the best way you can yell at somebody is compliment them. So you're the best player.
Yeah, but I think once again, we're at a point of the season. Not only is everything magnified, every win, loss, every little detail that happens throughout the game. If this would have happened in April, they're like, whatever, but or it probably doesn't even happen. He's probably like, hey, don't argue with the umpire, or it probably doesn't even say anything. But the fact that wins are so valuable right now, and his presence in the lineup is so valuable, and they're trying to achieve something that they want to achieve, that he had to do what he had to do. And I guarantee after the game, I'm sure they either talked about it or it was like nothing ever happened. I think Manny needs to feel really good about what he did, because it shows growth in him. I mean, he's still a young guy himself, but he's been in the league for a long time and obviously sees a lot of himself in Tatis. And I think Tatis knows that Manny's got his back. And I think he understands that Manny really cares about him and respects him, and even respects him to the point where he said he was a better player than him. And those are, I mean, we're talking about
alphas.
We're talking about
straight
comparing
alphas.
Ferraris and Lamborghinis,
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
I agree. I think to me, for Manny, that's like a massive step because of like, really, if you look at the Padres in general, right? If I just looked at a 30,000-foot view, I would say, where's leadership, right? Like, who's the leadership? Because to Kevin's point, like, we know Manny, the young guy. Like, Manny came up when he was 20. Like, I was playing with him in Double-A, and then the next week he was in the big leagues and never came back. And I never really looked at him as the player that could take a leadership role. And I think getting traded to the Dodgers when he did, and going to the World Series and kind of getting his shit pushed in, really, the way, I mean, he didn't look good in that playoff, in that World Series. I think it was a big step for him. And then obviously having to take on that role in San Diego. And I think it could lead to a lot of future success now, because if he's going to establish himself as that guy that everybody kind of can look to and do it in a way, to your point, Bobby, before, was like, how do I do it in a way that I make this guy understand how valuable he is? It's like knock somebody down to lift him up, or lift him up to knock him down. That was really, I think he played it great. And honestly, I don't give a crap what Twitter thinks, because as an athlete,
I think to another point too, I think I don't think people realize how difficult of a thing that is to do too, to be confrontational, to be a leader, to call out a teammate. Like, I've had times here, even this year, as I've matured and I've gotten older, and I've been, I don't want to say pushed, but I've been shepherded to be a little bit more of a leader, to be a voice inside of our clubhouse. I've had to do some things that I'm not very comfortable doing. It's not comfortable calling out a teammate, a friend, a peer, whether the player is better than you, worse than you, older than you, more service time, less service time. When you're asked to be a leader, you have to do some things that are very uncomfortable. And I know for damn sure what Manny did, he was not very comfortable doing, but it needed to be done. It needed to be said. It needed to be heard. It needed to be vocalized. Then you go about your business. I had a scenario this year. I had to do it to a teammate. I didn't like his behavior. It wasn't an isolated incident. It was something that built up over time. And from the moment I got here, they said, hey, you may have to do this with a certain player here. And I said, okay, like, I'm new here. Let me be a observer before I'm very reactionary. And it just got to a point. And I was also, I don't think I would have done it, but I was also triggered in the moment, because I think I was dealing with my own kind of failures at the time too. So I was already kind of triggered to do it. And then I watched him do it for like the 10,000th time for this year, when I was kind of going through it for the first time. And I said, fuck it, now's the time. And you do it, and you feel like you got 10,000 eyes on you, and you're like, shit, did I make the right decision? Is that going to be perceived right by him? Is that going to be perceived right from my coaching staff? Is that going to be perceived right from my, teammates?
Yeah, everyone.
And what I've had to learn about becoming a leader and being asked to be a leader is none of that shit should matter. If you feel like it's right, and you feel like being a leader is sometimes lonely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've learned from, studying and admiring Kobe and the Jordans of the world. You're not always going to be, a lot of times you're not going to be the most, popular guy on your team, but guys are going to want to go to war with you. I think guys are going to respect you. Not to say that my teammates don't want to be around me, or I don't have friends on this team, but sometimes being a leader is lonely. Sometimes you have to say the things that people need to hear that they don't want to hear. Sometimes you have to say things that need to be said that no one's saying, and it's definitely a challenge. So I give Manny all the props in the world. I wish it was something that wasn't so public, but the fact that it is public, I think he deserves a lot of credit. And hopefully, like you said, I mean, if you're reading the stuff, hopefully he's receiving a lot more praise than he is criticism for what he was able to do.